Goonhammer has partnered with Legalized Mischief to present you with Colin Ward's long-form painting videos. Like and subscribe, and follow Legalized Mischief and Goonhammer for more hobby tutorials.
Hey everyone, it's Colin with Legalized Mischief Productions. Thank you for joining me and welcome. And today I'm going to be showing you how I paint these Stormcast Vindictors from the Age of Sigmar Dominion box. So you can see kind of a light greenish stone type armor look. Some silver metallics, bright orange glowing weapons, black detailing. Overall, just really like this scheme. Kind of a wasteland basing there. Really like the scheme. It's very efficient, very effective. And so we'll be using this model as the example model. And it's pretty straightforward. So I'm going to try and pack as much of this into a single video as I can. So without further ado, let's get started. First thing we're going to do is undercoat with Vallejo Model Air Panzer Dark Gray through the airbrush. And this is a very dark color, so give a nice overall base coat. I believe the shield actually comes off, so that's handy. Left the shield off for just a phase in it. This is just making sure that we have a nice base. All right. There we go. Next up, we have Vallejo Model Air German Gray, and this is going to be a little bit greener than the previous version. We want to keep the orientation of the shield in mind when we're spraying. So this shield is coming at a little bit of an angle. So the light is going to be kind of across the face of the shield. So just keep that in mind. This is going to go kind of from a high angle. We're not doing zenithal per se, but we definitely want to leave that darker gray in the shadows. Pretty straightforward. All right, and then we have the gray Vallejo Model Air Gray RLM02, and that's an important distinction from just Vallejo Model Air Gray, which is the color on the right. Color on the left is a very pale, kind of desaturated green, and that is the Vallejo Model Air Gray RLM02. And again, we're just going to be mindful of the lighting on the shield and a little bit on the back of the shield. Hello. A little on the back of the shield as well. We concentrate on the shoulders, top of the arms, for the legs there. There we go. And just kind of a little more cast there. There we go. All right. Okay, now comes the fun part. We are going to highlight, and we're going to do it in a very easy and accessible way. Good old-fashioned dry brushing. So, or in a controlled way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of that middle tone, that German gray, and a little Vallejo model color ivory. Put that off to the side so I can get a good mix, get an old brush, take some of that ivory, mix it in there. Not quite light enough. Get the rest of that. Now I'm mixing up here. Probably like right there is good. So you can see that how light that green is next to the armor color. That's good. I don't need a lot of it because I'm just doing the one model. I'm going to take one of these this is a big craft brush, synthetic brush. You can tell I use it for dry brushing, mostly like bases and terrain and stuff. I'm going to get a little bit of paint on the brush. I'm going to work it into the paper towel to get it into the bristles, but also to get a lot of the paint off. And then test it on my hand. As you can see, barely any paint coming off, but when I take it over to the model, you can see all those details start to get defined. And that's because there's not a lot of paint on this brush. It's worked into the bristles, so it's a very subtle dry brush. If I put too much paint on this, that's when you get that streakiness and that kind of overbearing kind of dry brush look. But because there isn't a lot of paint, look at that. Boom, perfect. Done with the shield for now. Get some more of that paint, work it into the bristles, and then come to the model and kind of going from the top down. Try to focus on the edges of the armor here, down on the feet there, kind of the chest area, edges of the armor, top of the feet, top of the shoulder. The arms, get that nice lion's head detail there. Calf. Armor. And now you can see we're getting a little bit of dry brush texture on those armor panels. That's okay. We're going to fix that here in a second. But for now, highlights look pretty solid. Might grab a little bit more paint. And I just want to make sure that we're getting everything we can out of this initially here. Okay. That looks pretty good. That is not bad. Nice shadows, as you can see there, going into the lights, especially on the back. So we do have a little bit of that dry brush texture, but that is an easy fix. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of that highlight color, that gray RLM 02. And you can see how thin it is. And just very gently hit the flat parts of these panels. It's kind of a glaze. Very gently. And you can do this with a brush as well. You don't need an airbrush to do this part. It's just faster with an airbrush. So just kind of hitting the middle of those panels. Now we have a really nicely defined model for not a whole lot of effort. And now that we have those defined, now we're going to start blocking in some of the main colors. All right, so first things first, I'm going to get scale colored black metal. You can use any kind of darker steel metallic. And I'm going to go around and just base coat any of the steel elements on the model, which include the kind of male skirt here. Edge of the sword there. Pommel. Can't forget these bits under here. Up there. And then, of course, the silver parts of the weapon. One of the things that makes this scheme so efficient is that after the armor color, pretty much everything else is either black or steel metallic, and the little, like, the sashes and stuff that are like the red leather color. But other than that, everything else is this steel, which helps because it covers really well and it just wash and highlight really easily. So in that sense, it's a very, very straightforward and efficient scheme. I'm just doing the top part of the shield here. I'm leaving the rest of the shield green, just editorial choice. I wanted more of that green. I didn't need the metallic to go all the way around the shield. Great. And then grab some Nuln oil. I got a little bit of Nuln, and we're actually going to give this a pretty good wash with the Nuln oil. I want this well defined, and I want it matte in the shadows. So this is not the gloss. This is just a regular matte Nuln oil. I really like that contrast between the shiny highlights and the matte shadows, especially when doing something chunky like this. It helps to give a lot of definition for very little effort. Which is ideal for this game, because this is a scheme I developed. I need to paint these in a hurry, but I wanted them to look unique. So I went ahead and I'm just pushing contrast, and as much as I can, just trying to do base coat, wash, highlight, and be done. So that's the goal here. And as you can see, quick Nuln oil. And then while that's drying, we're going to move on and base coat the next step here. So let me just grab Vallejo Panzer Aces Dark Rust, which is a very dark red-brown. You can use any kind of dark red-brown for this part. This is not really critical for this scheme, like exactly which red-brown you use. I just like the red-brown because the warmth gives a nice contrast to the green of the armor without being too overpowering. I have another red leather recipe. Boy, that's a tongue twister. That has much more red in it, and that would be really overwhelming for this scheme. So I'm just going to base coat, and there's not a ton of leather on these models. There's more on the a little bit more on the Cruel Boys, where this also where I've also used this same kind of leather color. But yeah, that's gonna be behind the shield, so I don't need to geek out too much. That's good. Now I'll grab a wash for that. And for this, I'm using a Scale Color Inktense Wood from Scale 75. And that is really any kind of brown or chestnut ink will do. And this isn't ink, this is not a wash. So it's going to be much more saturated, and it's going to have a much kind of larger effect on the model than just a wash would. And now that that's done, I'm going to grab Exhaust Manifold from Vallejo Metal Color. This is going to be kind of the first highlight on the metallics here, kind of the first pass. Not going to see a huge difference, but it's going to pave the way for the next highlight, which is where you're going to get a lot of definition. These scales are nice and big, so you get that kind of basis. I wouldn't want to use the pale burnt metal right over the washed black metal. It would be too much of a contrast. So I use the exhaust manifold as kind of a midway point between the base and highlight. But as you can see, this is very quick. This is not taking forever. Again, taking the lighting from the shield into account here. Just going to get this upper portion here. The bottom part I'm going to leave in shadow, so that when it's on her arm, the lighting makes sense, and the lighting tracks with the green elements on the shield as well. Perfect. Now we're using the Vallejo Metal Color Dark Aluminum, which is one of my favorite metallic paints. This is a very clean, bright, kind of silver metallic. Love it. And this is where we're going to get a lot of the heavy lifting in the highlights here. Kind of grab that belt buckle there. Now you can see that mail is really starting to stand out. He was picking up and just doing little little dots on the scales. Quick little highlight up here. We're gonna have to come back and do that after we do the OSL as well. All right, looking pretty good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of Vallejo Metal Color Ivory, and I'm going to mix it in with that dark rust to get the highlight color for the leather. And what that's going to do, I use ivory and not white because the ivory is going to keep a little bit of that warmth while lightening it, whereas white would just make it lighter. It's very subtle. This is not a really model defining step, but it is important to do. Just a quick little edge here. Quick little edge, a little bit of texture. A little bit of worn leather. Easy. And now the next step is to base coat the elements in black. This is actually the most time-consuming step for this paint job. So I'm actually going to do that off camera. And then when we come back, I will show you what we've painted black and how I'm going to highlight it. Okay, there we have it. Vallejo Model Color Black, my go-to. And all I've done is I base coated the helmet, the entire helmet area with the black. And careful not to hit the hair because I'm actually just going to leave the hair like that. I think it's really cool. I think it looks great. It's just highlighted how it is because of the airbrushing. But the other plumes I've left like that, and I think it actually looks really cool and doesn't distract from the model, so I'm leaving it. And it's my miniature. I can do what I want. So I did do the back of the knee joint here. You can really get swept up in what's going on underneath the armor here with the joints. This could probably all be black in here. The elbow joint, there's some leather strapping going on in here. I'm just going to go ahead and save myself a ton of time and pretend like I don't see that. So the back of the legs, fine. The sword scabbard and handle, the handle for the spear, and also the flag back here. So first things first, I'm going to get a better brush than the one I've been using and get my other go-to, which is Intermediate Blue from Vallejo Model Color. Thin that down. Make sure I have a nice tip on the brush. And then literally just kind of top of the scabbard here. Run it along the handle. And then the same thing down the top middle of the handle here. Very, very lightly. Get that kind of crosshatch look there if you can see it. There we go. That's a better angle. And then coming up the side here just a little bit, using the side of the brush, very, very lightly, very little paint, just to kind of get. One of the things that I love about how GW sculpts these Stormcast is, like, look at that. Just a very simple, it's not in focus at all, hang on. They're very chunky, very, very chunky details. So there you can see it a lot better. So just with that highlighting's done. And now I'm going to come up here. I'm going to come up here to the helmet. Get the 3 rivets kind of at the back of the head there. And then the front of the helmet. Same thing. I'm going to get the top of this. And then nice clean edges here. Whoop. I see that. And then makes a big mess. So just a little plaque. No problem. Don't really want to extend the tutorial, but we're almost there. Front edge of the crest. Make sure to get the spikes. Spike. Spike, spike. Front edge of the crest. Now it has these little kind of like brow ridges here. Very important to get those. Highlight the little gem thing. Some people paint the little gem thing, and nobody got time for that though. Underside of the eye ridge. Nose. Lower part of the eye. Really getting the whole eye defined there. Nice. And then the lip there. And then we'll get the other side of this. Full like so. And that's it for those black elements. And now with the banner and the suit joints, I'm getting a little dark sea blue from Vallejo Model Color. Just get the top of those joints. Very simple. And then I'm going to be done with that. And this is just a quick edge on the banner. Imperceptible, really, with just the dark sea blue, but then we're going to come back and kind of see where the bulge in the cloth is and kind of do a little hash highlight there. A little edge on the other side. And we're going to grab a little bit of that ivory that we have on our palette from the leather. Mix that into the dark sea blue to get this beautiful blue grayish color. But more blue than blue gray. But it's going to give us a very soft highlight to that black. A little bit of the highlight there for the cloth. That's the Ben Comet's special right there. The dark sea blue and the ivory. So cheers to Ben, the master, for that recipe. Cool. So really, the acrylic painting elements are done. Pretty good. Pretty good. And now we're going to switch up materials and we're going to move on in the next segment to enamels and OSL and then basic. So stay tuned for the next segment when we play a little bit with some enamels. So I'll be back shortly with part 2. We finished with the acrylic painting version. This is fine. If you were to go put this on a table, like we'll do the OSL on the blade, but if you were to go and put this on a table, it would be fine. It looks really good as it is. I like the green. I like where we're at with that. I think it is a good looking model, but you'll see I really want to develop the green just a little bit more and get a little bit more definition and a little bit more color, a little bit more of a green color into the armor. And to that end, can't forget the shield. I'm going to use enamel washes to do that. I have one kind of forest green and one little bit lighter green, slimy grime light and slimy grime dark. These are from AK. Do yourself a favor, get them from MIG Ammo. Same exact product name But I prefer to support MIG over AK. So if you're going to go out and buy them from MIG and not AK. MIG does a lot of charity work and is just a good guy, good company, easy to support. So, gonna use a little bit of Artist White Spirit, same as I do for oils. Whoops. Get a little bit of that on this metal palette here, and then a little bit of the lighter green. And I mean, that's way more than I'll need for this one model, but you're going to see how this goes very, very quickly. That's another reason why I like these enamels. So I'm going to push a little bit of the white spirit into the middle here. Going to grab just a little bit of that green, the lighter green. And you can see how thin this is. It really doesn't have too big of an effect, but you can already see how this is a little bit more green than this. This is looking a little more gray now. And then we're going to get a little bit of that darker green. Dilute that down because these are very, very, very saturated, these enamels. So we can thin these way, way, way down and still have them affect the color. So you can see how much that darker green has an effect on those armor panels. And so I'm just going to go around, and this is no varnish on the acrylic. I'm just going to do some of the light green. And the greens are just different enough that it just gives a little bit of variation to use two different greens. You could just use one if you want, and it won't look that different from what I'm doing with the two different greens. But I like using the two different greens, even if it's just in my head. It gives me a little bit more variation. One's a little bit brighter, lighter. One's a little bit more kind of forceful. Make sure I get in there. You do want to make sure that you get it everywhere, though, that you're getting all of the armor surfaces with the enamel. The ones that you don't get are definitely going to stand out. So okay. And I almost forgot. So we hold up the shield. So here's the Vindictor, and you can see that nice little green, and here's the color that the armor was just a minute ago, right? So you can see how much more desaturated this is versus after the enamels on the Vindictor here. Just adds a little bit more color, and you might be saying, oh, that might be a little too green. And if that's the case, let's just get this shield done up here. Get the back of the shield. Okay, easy peasy. And that just rinses out like so. And then what I can do, and you don't want it to, I don't necessarily want it to dry 100%. You can see this is still a little bit shiny, a little bit wet. I don't want it to dry really 100%. It's just, then less of it will come off, but I can get a Q-tip kind of soaked in white spirits, and then very, very gently kind of work the surface. I'm not pressing very hard at all. I can work the surface of these armor plates here. And you can see it's not taking off that much of the enamel. of the wash, but it did knock it down. It did knock it down a little bit. It's not quite as green, so it took away a little bit. But you can see it still has some nice color variation. And let me get my model that I've already painted just to check. So yeah, when that gets varnished, those are going to be real close. So same thing, we can come over here to the shield. And take off some of that wash there. Perfect. And now I'm going to let this dry a little bit and get the materials packed up and put away. And when we come back, we will do the OSL on the spear. So just give me 1 minute. Okay, so if you've seen the hot orange OSL tutorial, this is the same recipe for just the basic tutorial. I'll link that in the description of this tutorial video, but we have GW Evil Sunz Scarlet layer, ice yellow from Vallejo Model Color, and then hot orange from Vallejo Game Air. Hot orange is the color that really comes to the forefront. The other two are going to be appreciated because hot orange is extremely thin, and essentially it's a transparent paint. So I'm using the red and the yellow as the pre-shade so that it has a little color to the hot orange. First things first, we're going to be doing the Evil Sunz Scarlet, and you'll notice as I start, I am not masking or doing anything of the sort on this metal. So, because the spear's held so far away from the body and I can just touch up the metallics, I'm spraying away from the model, and I'm just going to do a nice layer of Evil Sunz Scarlet. I'll have to redo these metallics, but, you know, that, ooh, too much water. What is going on here? Hang on. Oh, okay. Need a little more paint in the cup would probably be a good idea. Crisis averted. So same thing, spraying away from the model from underneath. The yellow is a little bit trickier, but I'll demonstrate how I do that as well. Because the hot orange OSL tutorial was for OSL on weapons, but doing it on blades is a little bit different. Not hugely different, but I have a cool way of doing kind of quick and easy power weapons, which is essentially what I'm doing with these. So now I'm going to get the ice yellow. Okay, so that ice yellow ready. And this I'm going to spray pretty much directly across. Then this is a little tricky. So I want it to be angled down enough that I don't get paint on the underside of the blade, but I want to spray across it flat enough that it catches the top edge and doesn't get on the other side of the blade here. So I'll show you what I mean. So we're going to do the top half of this blade, spraying straight across. And then on the other side, we're going to do the same thing, but just to do the bottom part of the blade. And there you have that kind of power weapon 2-stage fade. This takes some practice, but I don't really want to bust out the tape every single time I paint a power blade like this. And so if you get the angle right, you can just spray down the middle of the blade. Same thing on this side. Just make sure that we're alternating. So we have that fade on that side, that fade on this side. And then hot orange over the top. And this hot orange is basically translucent. So you can see here, it's orange, but it's basically like if I tried to paint this over white, it would not do anything. So, or if I tried to paint it over just red or something like that, it would not do anything. So this just real easy at first. Do one layer, flip this over. There we go. And on camera, lost a lot of that fade, but it is there. It's not super pronounced, but it's there. Could be more pronounced. Like if I used a really stark white instead of the yellow, it would probably stand out more, but you know, it's fine. So I'm going to let that dry and then just give the metallics a quick touch-up. We'll be right back. Okay, here I just grabbed a little bit of that burnt iron. And I'm just going to make sure, using the side of the brush, be very careful. I don't really want this to look all, OSL happy. I want the blade to be contained in the weapon. I don't want the glow of the blade. Like it's not really like a glowing blade in so much as it's a magic blade in my eyes. Anyway, how I think about it. So in that sense, it's not like the light isn't spilling out over the weapon. It's just the empowered blade or the material of the blade, the magic material. So quick little burnt iron, and then quick dash of dark aluminum. And now I take a little bit of super glue, mount the shield, and we're done. little bit of matte varnish. And this model's done. I mean, it's really not, I mean, that was less than an hour, probably an hour, you know, with all the time cuts and everything. You can see there how close the color on the blades are. The weapons are nearly identical. The armor, you know, very, very, very close. Very close on the armor. They certainly passed the eyeball test for me. And they look cool. It's a cool scheme. I like the scheme. So just a little varnish. And then after I do the Hobgrot tutorial, I'm going to be doing one on the basing, which I will link. I will also link that in the description for this video when that gets done. So there'll be a tutorial on how to base these, because this basing is really straightforward and I think very, very effective. I think it looks cool. It goes well with the scheme. And so I'm going to do a tutorial on that as well. But I hope you enjoyed these couple quick tutorials on how to paint these Stormcast Eternals from Dominion. I had a lot of fun with this scheme. It's easily repeatable. So if I do ever want to add models to this army, add units to this army, it's super straightforward, and it would be really easy to do. So we'll see. We'll see if I ever end up playing Age of Sigmar, but very grateful to GW for sending me the models, and I'm glad that I was able to do a tutorial for you guys, because it's fun. And this goes to show you don't have to use the most complicated techniques in the world. You don't have to have a bunch of, you know, crazy technique and paints and stuff like that to get a really effective scheme. Like, this is a weird kind of gray green with black and steel metallics and orange blades, and it looks fucking cool. So hope you enjoyed the tutorial. And you know, if you have any questions, please leave them below so that everybody can see the answer. And check the comments or check the description rather, for the hot orange OSL and blade tutorial, and as well as the basing tutorial when that gets made. So thank you for your support. Take care, be well, paint happy, and the Emperor protects. Or Sigmar protects, I guess, in this case. I will see you soon.